Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. There it is in all of her glory. It is November 4th, 2018, and these welders are not even on display yet at Harbor Freight, but I went to my store that I usually go to and they had one in the back, and I said, let me buy this thing, and I brought it home so we can pull this thing apart and review it and see, is it a gem or is it junk? Let me pull this thing out of the box and we'll find out. Well, the packaging is actually pretty nice. You can see the regulator and the sample rolls of welding wire they give you. There's one flux core and one regular welding wire. And there she is, all stacked up on the table in her green glory. It's got a nice long cord. It's about 8.5 or so feet long. It's almost 9 feet. It's got your 220 to 120 converter cable on it. The ground lead looks to be okay. It's not the greatest. It's a little bit chintzy stamped steel, but it does have the copper clip between the upper and lower. Because it is not a 200 amp machine, I'm sure is why they did this. They've got this is the smaller DINS 25 instead of the larger half-inch DINS they have on the larger welders. Well, let's pull the stuff out of here and see what this thing looks like. Although this is plasticky, it still feels pretty solid. Bring you in a little closer here. This has got the chrome-plated roller cage on top. It seems to be like cast aluminum body. 16 gauge steel on the box. The rest of it is definitely plastic, molded plastic. And you can see it's got actually a really detailed layout of your voltage and even tells you what you should set your inductance to. Well, the first thing I'm having problems with is this chintzy little screw they got here. You can see this is kind of boogered up on the end. That kind of sucks. This holds in the wire guide. It's set to 30 thousandths, which is what I'm going to be welding with because that's the kind of wire I've got. But this thing is having trouble going back in there. I cannot get it threaded in straight. May have to take a little tap and die and get this thing to... And this thing feels cheap. Ah, there it goes. Went back in, but that's really not giving me a boost of confidence here. Take you around to the back of the machine where the power cord is permanently attached. You've got your on-off switch, gas input, and your choice of either 120 or 240. It does not automatically detect your voltage, apparently. And on the front of the unit, you can choose between the electrode positive and electrode negative by switching these cables. Got your positive here and your negative here. And it has a remote connection here for your switch. And on the front, you've got your wire speed selector. And this is your voltage here and your inductance adjustment. And it's got your two LED digital panels along with your power light, your alarm light, and your working light. Over here it has a 2T and a 4T switch, so you can choose between either holding the button on your gun or pressing the trigger and letting go in welding. Okay, I've got the skin off this thing so we can take a little closer look at it. And you can see you got a little bit of plastic held on with a wire tie. That's not exactly the best I've seen, but on the plus side, the circuit boards look very professionally done. I checked the ground wire and the rest of the wire connectors, and everything is very tight. I know with some of this Chinese made stuff, the wires, they don't get checked. It winds up being loose ground, but man, everything is nice and tight. Connectors have all got a little bit of squirty stuff on there. Your RTV to hold it in place, got some hot melt here on the cable connectors. Nothing jumps out at me. I am not going to take this whole thing apart here just in case I bring this thing back, but this is there's no big transformer or anything in here. This is just a complete DC to DC conversion taking place here. I suppose we're going to get this back together again so I can see how it welds. That's the most important thing here. I'm going to start out with some 11 gauge steel and see how this works. I'm going to move on to some 1/8 inch material. There's the 1/8 inch material. Now, my crappy welding aside, this thing lays down some pretty decent steel. It definitely welds. I think it does a pretty decent job. If you get somebody who actually knows what they're doing, they're able to actually weld with this thing pretty decently. Well, let's see how I did. That doesn't look too bad. Now what I think I'm going to play around with is this inductance knob to see if that actually does anything or not. Let's turn it all the way up first. Now we'll try it all the way down. Well, that inductance button does do something actually. You turn it all the way up, it gives you kind of a really muddy feel to the puddle. If you turn it all the way down, it gives you a real crisp feel to the puddle. So the numbers they actually put on the welder actually are pretty much right on. I've got it set to like 4.5 right now, and just for the heck of it, I'm going to try welding that thing on. It's a solid 1/2 inch piece of cold rolled steel. But wait, there's more. I was digging through the scrap bucket and saw this chunk of 1/4 inch, so I'm going to go ahead and try this. Well, apparently you're not supposed to weld 1/4 inch with 30,000th wire, but I'm going to try it anyway. Okay, there is what I welded. This was already used for other people practicing welding. It probably would not pass an x-ray, but probably none of my welds would pass an x-ray. I don't think it did too bad. If it had 35,000 wire on there, it probably would have done just fine. Alright, I'm going to get out of this noise and get back to the shop, and I'll give you my final thoughts on this welder. Well, I'm back in the shop and I'm ready to give you my 2 cents on this welder, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it. And I can say this is not a professional welder, if you haven't guessed that already. If you're a professional welder, you probably are not watching this video anyways. This is just not made to be thrown into the back of the truck and tucked into a welding site. It's just not going to hold up. However, it is a pretty nice hobbyist machine. Now, over the day that I spent with this thing welding with it, I started out with some 11 gauge, worked my way up to some 1/4 inch stuff. I can say this thing welds pretty nice for what it is, a $500 welder. It welds pretty darn nice. It's probably the best cheap welder I've ever welded with. It lays down some nice consistent beads, and it's pretty easy to weld with. What do I like about this welder? Well, it's a nice looking little welder. It's light. It only weighs 25 pounds. You can, when you're not using it, you can take and pick it up and put it up on your shelf. It doesn't take up that much. It's a physically small welder. It's not going to take up that much room. For as cheap a welder as it is, it's got some pretty long cables. Power cable is nice and long. The lead for the welding gun is nice and long. It's a dual voltage unit. You can use it on 110 or 240. And it's a nice welder for the price. Now, what do I not like about it? Well, at this price, it's not really a welder that if something goes wrong, they're going to take it apart and fix it. This thing is not, having taken this thing apart, it does not go back together again real nicely. It's not like a Miller or a Lincoln or something where you're going to take it apart and replace boards and do this and that. This welder is going to be pretty much disposable. If something goes wrong with it, you're just going to take it back to Harbor Freight and just exchange it. Also, the ground clamp on this thing, it's just stamped steel. Its quality is not great. It's probably not going to last very long. Now it comes to the description accuracy. On the website, this thing says that it welds 3/8 inch steel. In reality, this thing does not weld 3/8 inch steel. Even on the lid on this welder, when you flip it up, it only goes to 1/4 inch. It doesn't show you anything else. And in the manual, it doesn't even mention the size of steel you can weld with it. So there's a little discrepancy there that Harbor Freight should probably straighten out before they start selling more of these things. So should you buy this, and who is it for? Well, you already guessed by now, it's a hobbyist machine. This is a pretty decent welder if you're just going to use it at home, if you're going to weld up a trailer, you're going to fix a lawnmower deck, or if you've got a teenager that wants to get into welding but he's not sure, he or she is not sure. This is pretty good for that. One thing you don't want to do is go buy those little black welders from Harbor Freight. You're going to be tempted to buy one of those. They're $100, $200 or something. I would save my money and buy this. Those welders are actually a little bit difficult to weld with. And a young person trying to weld with it, and there's spatter going everywhere, and the welds don't look very good, they might get discouraged and kind of give up on it. This is good for a teenager to use, and if they wreck it, it's not the end of the world. At least it didn't cost $2,000. That is my review on the Harbor Freight titanium welder. I hope this video helps somebody out with their decision whether to try it out or not. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.